Hello and welcome to the Healthy Savvy Life Show and the weekly wrap episode. I'm your host Corey Sievers, and great to have you joining me for a little bit of a chat about how you can improve your health and well-being, really reaching that next level of health that you might be looking for. So congratulations for joining in. This weekly wrap episode is about answering your questions, sort of covering some of the things that we've dealt with through the week. And so if you're jumping on live, then do give me a wave to let me know that you're with me here, and ask any questions. Fire away. If we can't answer them live while we're here, then we'll get back with you and chat about that at a later time. So, if you happen to be catching this in the podcast version or, on YouTube or Instagram or any other channel, then, come join us for the live session on Facebook each time, and bring your questions too. So, so what are we going to be covering in this particular episode of Healthy Savvy Life? So we're going through the most important nutrients for eye health, luscious lips and how to get them, and then what is keto, and some healthy keto diet basics, some healthy savvy keto diet basics. So yes, throughout this particular week, we covered the things such as nutrients for eye health. We went into that in depth. Both of the shows were quite substantial shows this week. Lots to share with you. Even lips. We even got into detailed information about lips as well. So lips and eyes. It sounds like we're doing a bit of a makeover, aren't we? So ladies, what are the things that most make you? Lips and eyes. So anyway, I digress. The eye health, of course, we were talking about internal eye health, not the look of the eyes. Whereas with the lips, the appearance and health of lips certainly do make a difference. They don't only feel, bad and uncomfortable if they're cracked and dry, but they don't look too flash either. So welcome along to the Healthy Savvy Life show and the weekly wrap episode. We're going to jump on into some questions, do a bit of a recap, and see what we can do to help you out. All right. So I guess what we might do, first of all, we'll go into the keto concept. Like here we're answering frequently asked questions. And so one of the things when people come on board with our community or are just looking at what we do and dabbling with what they can do to improve their health and well-being, we're often talking about the eat savvy approach. And so because we're talking about diets, questions come up. So what about this diet? What about that diet? And all that sort of thing. And we have weight management programs that we've built and other, free resources as well. But one of the things that comes up a bit is the keto diet. Now, and I have spoken about that on numerous occasions as well. And so we've been involved in running programs around the keto diet. In fact, that was one of the first programs that we began on in 2005 when we first started using, doing weight loss and nutritional programs. So way before it was fashionable, the most Googled diet last year was the keto diet. And so, talk about 15 years behind the times. But anyway, I digress. Join with us in the Savvy team so that you can be at the cutting edge. After all, that's what we really are all about here in the Savvy team. Having you be astute, sharp, perceptive, and informed, especially with regards to improving your health and well-being and all things health and wellness focused. So let's look at the nutrients for eye health and what we covered there, and just look at some of the questions. I don't think there's anything that I needed to recap there, so we'll dive on into the questions and take a look. Okay, I think we have them posted here as well. Okay. So the general first, the first question in was really around about this concept of giving yourself a bit of a eye health tune-up, a bit of a vision tune-up. And, there are lots of different studies that have looked at the nutrients, large studies that have looked at the fact that you can prevent some of these supposed age related degenerative conditions such as macular degeneration. It's one of the most widely studied issues. But whether it be macular degeneration, cataracts, or just improving your all-round eye health and sharpening up your vision, improving your contrast, there are some nutrients that really do make a difference. So, and these are the nutrients that you really need to supplement with or really keep in your diet. So again, coming back to some of the things that are often said out there, like you don't need to supplement, all you need is a balanced diet. That is insane when you start to look at some of the nutritional research that's done. So most people don't have a diet that's rich in these diets. Like the standard Western diet, for example, is not rich in any of the nutrients that prevent the degeneration of the eyes. So to say all you need is a balanced diet, what does that mean? Because if we're following the typical diet advice, you're going to be deficient in those things. Because grains are one of the primary things that are recommended on standard diets, and they're known to deplete you of B vitamins, one of the things that we covered for lip health, but are also important for eye health. That you're known to have inflammatory oils in the standard Western diet, and they're not good for the eyes. You're unlikely to be eating as many greens. 95%, I think, of people from the research I've seen do not eat enough vegetables for normal health, so let alone to have those rich carotenoid nutrients and chlorophyll and all of these other things to support the protection of the eye. So when we see that it's age-related decline in eyesight, is it age-related or is it diet-related? Is it because over the course of decades and decades, we've just not got the nutrients that are needed for optimal eyesight and eye health? So we'll do a quick recap on those nutrients after we answer these questions. So what steps can I take to keep my eyes healthy? Well, I won't go into that probably in depth now. We do have a couple of videos that I referred people to that joined us for that particular episode, where we went into that more in depth. And let me just see whether I can tell you what they were called, and we can link them up. There were 3 tips for better eye health, I think it was. 3 tips for better eye health, and we called 5 easy natural ways to protect your eye health and vision. And so that went more away from just the nutrients and into more of the other things that you can do, like being careful with some of the things are like being careful with LEDs and the type of lighting you're using the bedtime apps and the flux apps and those sorts of things to turn down blue light, all sorts of things that we covered in that. Exercises that you can do to relax your eyes. There's so many different things that you can do to really optimize the health of your eyes. But from a nutrient point of view, that's probably the first step. And so looking at that, let me just get rid of that. So what are some of the things that you can do? Okay, I guess the first thing I would suggest is start to clean up your diet. So, if you're really looking to keep your eyes healthy, start to clean up your diet. The easiest way is to follow our Eat Savvy approach. It gives you 12 steps to get started and then a download that includes spectrums of food, so that essentially you're reaching for the most nutritious foods that are lowest in inflammatory agents and toxins, whether they be natural toxins or artificial toxins. And that will look after your eye health more, okay? Because they will be naturally higher in the nutrients and naturally lower in the inflammatory agents. And so the foods that are higher up on the spectrum. So that will really help you out. Getting in control of your weight and your blood sugar would be key. And that's why we've also put discussions around this concept of the keto diet. Okay, because it matched up with that sort of came up as a result. Questions have been there around the keto diet. We might do a total session on that sometime in the future. But getting in control of your blood sugar, your diabetes, your insulin levels will make a huge difference to your eye health. Okay, so start with the 12 steps on the Eat Savvy diet. Reduce your carbohydrate and sugar load. Reduce the inflammatory seed oils, and really just start to improve your diet. Like a lot of the times, if you've been on a standard diet, we just say, look, now, grab that free resource, look at all of our material, and just start practicing. You don't have to, a lot of people want to do everything perfectly, like a cut and dry. Tomorrow I'm going on my massive lifestyle change. And then you crash and burn, because it's like taking a bottle out of the freezer and plunging it in hot water. There isn't that time for adaptation. So we've seen, like, with the Eat Savvy approach, we've had people on our programs actually lose 20 kilos just practicing, not even trying to be strict, but just giving themselves a go at eating healthier. So just do that, and just see how you go with your eye health. And so there's all sorts of tips that we have, but that would be one step that I would suggest you do. Consider taking nutritional supplements specifically for the eyes, and I will cover that. There are things such as vitamin A, B vitamins, but specifically herbs like bilberry and carotenoids such as lutein and zeaxanthin and astaxanthin, and then omega-3 oils and these sorts of things. These are really, really well documented as being helpful for the eyes, and helpful for, not helpful, just helpful for protecting the eyes, but helpful for making them feel better in the short term too, reducing visual strain, reducing the impact of glare and that sort of thing. So I was somebody who, I could not stand glare. I was really, still, if it's too glary, but I would get headaches with glare. Part of that was diet and blood sugar related and all sorts of things, but these nutrients, when I include these nutrients, I don't have that same problem. I mean, you don't want to stare at the sun or anything, but I can go outside and not end up, like I can't focus or anything, because I've been able to gradually improve my eye health by including these nutrients. And so I'm saying 20 years ago, I had more problems with glare and dry eyes and itchy eyes and those sorts of things than I do today. So you really can improve your eye health. Okay. Truth be told, I probably don't have the vision that I had 20 years ago, but nevertheless, you can really protect your eyes, and that's the core thing that we're talking about here. All right. So what can you do? Good question. Love this question. What steps can I do to keep my eyes healthy? That's a focus on prevention rather than intervention. So I love that. So as I said, the nutrients, we'll cover those in just a moment. Obesity, being overweight and being diabetic is definitely, it dramatically increases your risk for eye health disorders. Okay? Smoking dramatically increases your risk for eye health disorders. Having poor arterial health, so not looking after your cardiovascular system. Some of the finest vessels, some of the finest capillaries in the body actually feed the eye. And so what are some of the early signs? We've been talking recently, we've been dealing with prostate health and erectile dysfunction, all these sorts of things. And we discussed about how, talk about off the topic, but I discussed about how, essentially for the gents out there, the penis is a bundle of blood vessels. And if it's not working properly, then it's a bit of an early warning sign of potential breakdown in the cardiovascular system, in the capillary network within your body. Well, even more so if you're noticing problems with your eyes, because it's those fine vessels. And so we've seen people, many of our community members have said when they've done our Healthy Heart Challenge, their eyes are better. Again, because it's focusing on all around just optimizing things for the cardiovascular system. Some have said when they're focused on our Healthy Brain Action Plan, which is, really focusing on getting circulation to the head and being on herbs and nutrients that feed and help to oxygenate the brain and all those sorts of things, people say that their eyesight got better. So, again, when you have a holistic wellness focus, then all of the aspects of your body are taken care of. So, you can even look after your brain and end up with better eyes. It's holistic is such an important way to go. But if you've been really concerned about your eyes and you want to look after them, some of the nutrients that I'll cover in just a moment are the things to focus on. All right, so good question. I think that hope that covers it. All right. Next one was, what causes dry eye syndrome? Well, dry eye syndrome, it's a term that's used really, I guess, to anything that's a syndrome means that there's not a specific, haven't documented a specific cause, but it just means that the lubrication, the tear ducts don't function properly. And I'll just see whether I had the stats here, but I think it's 15% of people over the age of 40 tend to have this dry eye syndrome. But it's obviously characterized by that feeling of dry eyes, by the lack of proper tear production, and the eyes can be sort of feeling gritty and dry and painful as a result of that. So there are a number of different things that can go towards that, and we talked about that we didn't talk specifically about dry eye syndrome, but a number of the things that can really impact the eye health, such as the feeling of moisture in the eyes, lack of essential fatty acids, lack of hyaluronic acid, those sorts of things can make your eyes feel dry. But, if you're just in air conditioning and heating a lot, that's going to make the condition worse. So a lot of people then reach for lubricating eye drops, those sorts of things to help. But, if you change your diet and lifestyle, then you move more away from the nutrient poor diet, more into whole foods, lots of good fats, you eliminate symptoms such as diabetes and all that sort of thing, you're going to notice a difference. So many people notice a difference because their body's getting the nutrient. You're getting the nutrients that you actually need to optimize the health of all of the structures of your body. So you can certainly supplement with omega-3, evening primrose oil, flaxseed oils, these sorts of things. And we have some specific collagen hyaluronic acid technology that really makes a huge difference in terms of the hydration levels in the body. And many of our community members say that their dry eyes basically went away when they do that sort of thing. So, but you can find hyaluronic acid eye drops, but you don't want to have to keep doing that. So the fundamentals are get rid of the inflammation, get more of the good fats into your diet, reduce the packaged and processed foods, get more nutrients in there, whether it be through supplementation or whatever, and you'll generally be better off. So there's sort of the short-term fix and the long-term fix, isn't there? Supplementation can make a huge difference in the short term, whilst you go about changing your lifestyle and improving things, and then that has more of that long-term residual effect. Okay, makes sense? So, so even just making a change in your diet, opting for more of the keto approach, which we're going to talk about, can hugely change your eyes and your lips that we'll talk about as well, because you've got more oils with which to work with. But then that's the oil side of things. Then there's the moisture side of things. And that's why I was mentioning that hyaluronic acid. If you're depleted in hyaluronic acid, and basically as you age, the hyaluronic acid levels in your body do go down unless you bolster them up again. And so you do tend to notice drier and drier skin as you age. So and that's why the more you can nourish your body with even having bone broths and those sorts of things it really can help that moisture retention ability of your body. But specific supplementation with collagen hyaluronic acid technology can really make a significant sharp difference in the short term as well as the long term. All right, we'll go through some of those nutrients in just a moment. I think that might have been all we had for the eyes. Oh no, okay. There was one here, what health conditions can affect the eyes? Oh yeah, here we go. So yeah, what health conditions affect the eyes? Well, I've sort of alluded to that, and so things such as diabetes, that's probably one of the biggest things. That's why, that's why they have the terminology of diabetic retinopathy. It's well known that if you don't balance your blood sugar, you have high blood sugar, high insulin levels, that you will damage the fine structures of the eye. So, and considering obesity, diabetes, and heart disease are some of the top issues that people face. It's we're struggling with a poor dietary advice out there in the standard diet. Because the standard diet really, in my opinion anyway, many other researchers as well, but my opinion has far too many carbohydrates. And having come from somebody who followed that advice, and I'll share my story when we go through the keto side of things, I was able to get on top of my blood sugar imbalances. And, really when I look at the trajectory of what I was doing, I probably would have ended up diabetic based on the lack of blood sugar control that I had at the time, just in my 20s. So, so many people just, and I was following the advice given by the experts and nutritionists, herbalists, and naturopaths. 3 experts told me the same thing. I should eat more complex carbohydrates more times throughout the day. It was basically incorrect advice. So, but what I learned later on is that each of those people had to share that information because it was system driven. The system told them that was the established, what's the word I'm looking for? The standard of care. That was what needed to be recommended. Boy, when we really get down to it, you need to take control of your own well-being, tap in with educational things like you're doing, and educate yourself and take responsibility, not look for the external, well, tell me what to do. Because there are certain, a practitioner belongs to a body, and a lot of people, have found, a lot of practitioners have found that even if they can't even share what they're personally doing with their patients because it's not established protocol. So just be careful with that and be aware that if you raise it to your, I was talking to a gentleman at the gym before they all closed down, and he said when he went to the doctor that was running a program, and at the end of a class, and said he'd had a heart attack, was going to one of the programs to get back on track and all that sort of thing. He asked about things such as coenzyme Q10 supplementation. He asked about going onto more of an anti-inflammatory diet. And it's like the doctor became animated and then shared. But he had to ask, because otherwise the restriction is to just share whatever the Heart Foundation recommends and, whatever the established protocol, the what's the word I'm looking for? The standard of care protocol. So, but as soon as he asked, it opened the way. So interesting, isn't it? That's what we're dealing with. We're not really dealing with the freedom of information system as much as we think we are. I digress. Let's not go down the political agenda, especially now with the current situation out there. Anyway, have a cup of coffee, have a drink of coffee, Corey, and then get on with it and zip those lips. Anyway. All right, so where was I? What health conditions? Diabetes, high blood pressure, autoimmune diseases, gallbladder and liver problems can all impact the eyes. Nutritional deficiencies all can impact the eye health. So, and the liver, from a Chinese methodology, the liver is very related to eye health. So the more you can get off all those same things that I talk about all the time aren't good for the liver either. So the refined carbohydrates, the inflammatory seed oils, and too much sugar. So, same. Okay. I think that's it for the eyes. Let's just take a quick look at some of those amazing eye health nutrients and do a bit of a review of those. Okay. So these are some of the eye health nutrients we covered more in depth when we did the show. So you can go, if you're interested in catching up on those or whatever, then go back and check out that show. But things such as bilberry, this is one of the most important ones. It is helpful for eye fatigue, for night vision, to protect against retinal damage, for the improvement of visual function, protection against oxidative damage, reducing inflammation, slowing cataract progression, and even for glaucoma. The lutein and zeaxanthin, these are some of the most studied carotenoids specifically for the eye tissue, and so the researchers have noted that they're very rich in the back of the eye, around the macula, so that they know that these are very important. Just like coenzyme Q10 is rich in the heart tissue and the brain tissue, so they started to notice that must be important. Lutein and zeaxanthin are rich in the macular tissue, so they started to notice that was important, but really good for protection from oxidative damage, filtering the damaging blue light and acting like a sunscreen as well for other UV light. Macular degeneration, improvement in visual performance and visual acuity, the sharpness, and also sharpening contrast. These are really helpful. So, bilberry, most of the time you're going to need to supplement. Blueberries and those sorts of berries are going to give you a little bit of the benefit, but not the same as bilberry. So really, bilberry, you're looking at a supplement there. But of course, more blueberries, those sorts of things will help because of those natural pigments. And but the lutein and zeaxanthin, along with astaxanthin, these are carotenoids that can be obtained. Well, lutein and zeaxanthin can be obtained from egg yolks and some nuts and all of the green superfoods and kale and all of your greens. So if you're eating your greens, you might be getting enough of those. And so again, supplementation just ups the ante because you often don't get them each and every day. So that's why don't be afraid of the egg yolks, rich in a lot of these eye health nutrients. Egg yolks are high in vitamin A. Vitamin A and beta carotene, so good for night vision, dry eyes, cataracts, and macular degeneration. So this is what, whether I can say that it's good for that or not, but if you're depleted in vitamin A, you're going to see poorer night vision, drier eyes, a higher prevalence of cataracts, and a higher prevalence of macular degeneration. That's probably the most official way of saying that. So by extension, making sure you have plenty of vitamin A in your system is both a prevention, but potentially a way of improving things as well. So beta carotene comes from the vegetable sources. This is from your carrots and from green leafy vegetables and from other places that you can find beta carotene in tomatoes and things like that. And so the problem is that doesn't convert so well to vitamin A. So if you have preformed vitamin A, which is only found in animal foods or supplementation, then it's just going to have a better effect on the eye health and protection. But both are important, okay? Both are important. All right, so vitamin E is helpful for protection against oxidative damage, and when you're deficient in vitamin E, you have a higher risk for cataracts. Zinc, if you're deficient in zinc, I'm already saying it better. If you're deficient in zinc, you'll have a higher risk for cataracts, macular degeneration as well. So, and zinc helps vitamin A to function. The B vitamins, if you're deficient in B vitamins, you can be at a higher risk for developing retinopathy, glaucoma, cataracts, macular degeneration. So, it's a good strategic bet if you want to prevent these things, that you want to prevent these issues, you want to optimize the nutrients, right? Make sense? Whether or not taking the nutrients can rectify the problem really depends on how much degeneration has occurred. That's really what it comes down to. But our whole system has been focused on treatment rather than prevention. And so, we have this methodology of, will this fix my eyes? Well, let's get away from the focus of fixing and focus on protecting and nourishing and looking after and preventing, rather than looking for something to go wrong and then fix it. Vitamin D, getting plenty of sunshine, has been shown, if you're deficient in vitamin D, you're at a higher risk for cataracts, a higher risk for macular degeneration. Now, you don't want to go out and look at the sun, but having it, again, vitamin D rich foods are the animal foods, and many of the things that have been eliminated from our diet as well, such as liver and organ meats. So sunshine is your best way, or otherwise supplementation. So the omega-3 oils, such as krill, which is also rich in astaxanthin, the carotenoid, which is good for protecting the eyes as well. But omega-3 oils and foods, etc., helpful for dry eyes. And if you're low in the omega-3 oils, then you're going to be at a higher risk for macular degeneration. And most of the time, most people following a Western diet are going to be low in omega-3, which are sort of some of the anti-inflammatory oils, and they're going to be high in many of the industrialized seed oils that are inflammatory, the omega-6 oils. Now, omega-6 as a class, we need them, but we're getting them from the wrong sources. We're not getting omega-6 from our nuts and seeds. We're getting it from, canola oil and vegetable oil and soybean oil and all these sorts of things, and margarines and hydrogenated vegetable fats in processed foods. And so they are inflammatory and not at all good for you or your eye health. And then we have other things such as hyaluronic acid and collagen, ginkgo biloba, astaxanthin, lots of vitamin C and bioflavonoids, and green superfoods. These are all really, really, really helpful for the eyes. So to give you a little bit of a glimpse, I'll give you a bit of a glimpse into our eye health program right now. So for those who are looking to support their eye health, we first of all, suggest eye health nutrients, those key nutrients that we just went through, okay, as a first port of call, because they have been shown to really support eye health. But then supporting the underlying aspects of the body with multivitamins and the macro minerals, so that you've got plenty of the B vitamins, you've got trace minerals such as zinc and selenium, because they're important for eye health as well. So something to specifically support those healthy oils, such as krill oil or omega-3 blends, depending on, we have community members all around the world, and we use different formulas around the world. Green superfood of some sort, because of the benefits of that and the carotenoids that are also in things such as spirulina and chlorella and blue-green algae and all these sorts of things, and even barley grass and alfalfa, those sorts of things. Collagen and hyaluronic acid complex we use, and this is because the eye tissue is basically made up of collagen and hyaluronic acid. So if we're seeing a lessening of that as you age, then again there's a definite connection with the effects that can go on as we age. And then we've got to look at other things such as antioxidant liver support, because of the connections there to eye health over the long haul, and maybe diet and lifestyle improvements as well. So that gives you a bit of a glimpse into some of the things that we cover for people doing, focusing on doing an eye health sort of program. All right, so let's jump on into talking about how to get some lovely lips, how to look after those luscious lips of yours. And so I'll just see what questions that we have. Okay. Bear with me. Okay. Okay, so here's one here. Let me see what we got. So what can I do to make my chapped lips look better quickly? So, good question. So we were dealing with a number of things, everything from chapped lips, the underlying reasons, what to do to optimize things. So we talked a lot about that on that particular episode. You wouldn't think you could go for like 40 minutes talking about the lips, but somehow I managed to do that. Lots to talk about. Anyway, so one of the things that we recommend in there was exfoliation. And so using sugar and coconut oil, for example, you can mix up sugar and coconut oil and just put that on your lips, leave it sit for a while, and then either, and that helps the coconut oil to soak in, helps it to sort of settle a bit. And then you can exfoliate the area with your fingers or a cloth, for example. So that can really help the chapped lips in that short term. But again, you've got to be looking at, well, why do you have chapped, dry lips? And most of the time, the reason that that's been a problem for you is usually using drying chemicals on your system, on your body. It might be the toothpaste. It might be the types of products that you've got on your body that might be rich in things such as sodium lauryl sulfate. Most things are. You might be using mineral oil and the propylene glycol in your products, and that can be drying as well. If you're using petroleum jelly or a chapstick or whatever that contains some of these things, it's actually drawing moisture from the lower levels of the skin and dehydrating your lips over the long term so that you keep using that product. Whereas people who have used the things that we recommend and then dealt with their underlying conditions, they no longer need chapsticks and everything. It's just their lips are healed. So in the short term, probably you doing that scrub that I talked about. You can also put honey. A lot of people suggest honey in there as well because of its antiseptic properties. So you can put honey and oil, coconut oil, and maybe a little bit of sugar in there to add that exfoliation, that roughness, or otherwise a specific exfoliating product can really help. But really, so that's probably the short-term things that you can do. And the problem with just some of the totally natural oils is that they don't stay on the skin. So you need a blend that has that's natural. So we have things such as macadamia, jojoba oil, coconut oil, and those sorts of things, along with beeswax and shea butter and those sorts of things, because then it can stay more solid and sort of hold to your lips. So definitely look for a more natural product for if you're using rather than the typical chapstick. All right. So that's what you can do at home to make your lips look better. Let me just give you a glimpse. So we did inside our private wellness community for our current clients and customers. We actually did a session where we covered a specific technology that we use for lip rejuvenation. And so, probably worthwhile showing you a couple of pictures based on that. So what can I do at home? Well, you can only do it if you have the product, but what can I do at home to make my chapped lips look better quickly? So if we want to put the focus on the quickly, let's just take a little look at that. I'll give you guys a glimpse here about what we covered. We talked about this in one of our private groups, but just look at this difference here. So this is, this particular lady didn't have chapped lips, and so for those of you watching on Instagram or YouTube or listening to the podcast version, we'll put the picture up somewhere, probably on the blog, but otherwise swing by the Facebook page and check out this episode 40. What are we on? Episode 45? 46? Episode 46, the weekly wrap. And so, you can sort of see there, if we're talking about quick results, This is just no lip color or anything, just a little bit of lip gloss to accentuate the appearance there. So you can see a definite rapid change in the health of this lady's lips. So you asked for quickly. That's quickly. Here's 6 days results. And again, these weren't really chapped, dry lips. A little bit there, but that's that's 6 uses of this particular technology that we use. That's a natural technology rich in hyaluronic acid and collagen and other supportive nutrients. And it does have an action of adding volume whilst also nourishing. And so there are lots of different ways to... I never thought I'd be talking about how to plump your lips, but anyway. A lot of people not only just struggle with that whole dry lip syndrome and chapped and dry and cracked and painful lips, and then after they start looking after them and feeling better, they then want to enhance their appearance. It's not just about getting back to no longer having cracked lips, but it's actually about improving things. And they have more, I guess, pride in their appearance, and more, they really want to take it to the next level and looking after their skin health and their fitness and everything. So it gives you that forward movement. That's what a lot of our community members have shared. So that was that. Some people did have more dry, cracked lips, and that can really help as well. So that's just in reply to reach out to us or your Savvy Team Wellness Guide, and we'll hook you up with a discount for that particular product. Let us know where you're joining from to around the world, and so that we know whether you have access to it, etc. But that's the quickest way, not an expensive product either, and natural. That's what I was going to say. There are many ways of enhancing the lips that are based on unnatural products, so that actually irritate and inflame the lips. And so a lot of these cosmetic products out there, they don't have a long-term benefit in mind. They have just short-term fix. And so if you can get something that has more of a natural and residual effect, but still has the instant effect, that's when you've really got the magic happening. You've got something that works quickly, but doesn't harm you in the long term. And that's the only sort of technology that we work with here in the Savvy Team. If you've ever seen the movie, you might hear lots of movie references here, but it reminds me of the movie Catwoman, is it? Catwoman with Sharon Stone and now I've got a memory blank, Halle Berry. And it actually highlights a cosmetic company that was doing animal testing and everything. And if you didn't keep using their product, then your face fell apart and cracked and you really went old. But if you kept using it, you were okay. And, it just highlights that whole concept. Well, that's a bit that's, referencing a little bit about what can go on in the typical industry, that it's not, it doesn't have the health of your skin in mind. It's the short-term benefit. And when you're not using that product, it feels like, oh my God, I better get some more of that. So what you're really wanting is you're wanting something. Some of those people, that I showed you with the lip improvement, they were amazed that their lips were better even without using it. Like not just after using it that day, but just waking up in the morning and they noticed that their lips were better. So it's having more of a healing, nutritive approach, which is so different to just a quick fix approach. But that's everything that we focus on here in the Savvy Team. So again, that's the quick fix, but then you'll want to correct the deficiency so your lips are healthy and your body's healthy. You just think about it. Your body is very good at triage, at crisis management. And if your hair's not looking good, if your skin's not looking good, if your nails are unhealthy, if your lips are cracked, then essentially the body's prioritizing nutrients for what it considers a little bit more important. Like, it's good to go, do I repair the nerves? Do I repair the cardiovascular vessels? Or do I, worry about, the nail health and the lip health of buggerlugs here. It prioritizes looking after your internal structures. And so anything that's showing up as an external sign of unhealthy skin, hair, nails, all that sort of thing, they are warning signs that you are deficient. So you don't just want to use a topical thing that appears, even though we recommend them. You want to correct the underlying deficiencies so that you don't, they're warning signs. So, you don't smash the warning light on the dashboard when it's telling you that you're low in oil. You do something about it. Well, dry skin, cracked lips, those sorts of things, they're warning signs. So we help you tackle those underlying issues. All right. So that was a longer explanation of that than I expected, but there we go. And you even have a movie homework to take care of. All right. So another question in was, I always have dry lips. I always have dry lips. I don't think I have it up to show up on screen. Oh yeah, there we go. So I always have dry lips. Always. Well, always have dry lips. What can I do? Well, make sure you're well hydrated. That's it. So it's generally often there's not enough water being drunk. Be careful. You might have to change your toothpaste because when you just think about it, you're getting that on your lips. Your lips don't have natural sebaceous glands really to produce that oil, so they dry it very quickly. So you probably have sodium lauryl sulfate in your toothpaste. You're probably deficient in essential fatty acids, maybe low in hyaluronic acid. So the short term is more of those healthy fats, drinking more water, those sorts of things, using something like even just the coconut oil sugar scrub. But long term, you're going to want to correct some of these underlying deficiencies we've been talking about. B vitamins and essential fatty acids and the like. Vitamin A, hyaluronic acid, collagen, all these sorts of things. Okay. I think we covered that enough, but what can I do to maintain healthy soft lips? Well, moisturizing your lips regularly. A lot of the times if you're putting apart from those underlying things, changing your nutrition, drinking more water, getting more essential fatty acids, those sorts of things, being careful with the chemicals that your lips are being exposed to because that dries things out. The things to look out for are propylene glycol, mineral oil, sodium lauryl sulfate. They're probably some of the typical dryers. And if you have a look, you pull out whatever you've been using on your lips and everything, or on your moisturizer, chances are you're going to see those ingredients. And that's part of the problem, okay? And so like propylene glycol makes things feel all smooth and moisturized and everything, but it's actually a humectant, so it's sucking the moisture often from the lower levels of the skin. Now, if you happen to live in a very humid environment, it may be more likely to be attracting moisture from the environment. But, if you don't live in a humid environment, or when do you tend to use these moisturizers more? In wintertime, when it's drier, and so it's actually drawing the moisture from the lower levels of your skin rather than from the environment. That's propylene glycol anyway. Mineral oils are a problem. That's why I was shocked that some of the top recommendations, even for, in teen, I checked out a teenage site, and they were saying the best thing to use on your lips is petroleum jelly. Ugh. Talk about training people at an early age to use the wrong things, but I digress. So using something natural on your lips, avoiding alcohol and those chemicals I mentioned. Don't smoke. don't be dehydrated. Use natural exfoliating things, and then maybe talk to us about a natural hydrating hyaluronic acid rich lip complex. All right. All right. I think just checking out what else we've got here. If you have any questions, then hit us up. So look, there can be all sorts of things that go on when an eye weeps chronically. So you definitely want to make sure that there's no underlying thing going on there, no infections and all that sort of thing. So if you've had that happen or you know of somebody, then getting that checked out. Obviously, any condition like that, it's worthwhile getting checked out. But there's a few different conditions that can cause that. A lot of the times it's inflammatory things, it's irritants, it's I'd have to look more into that if there's one particular eye that's weeping. See, a lot of the times if you're getting the same thing from both eyes, then it can be something in the air. It can be something that's an irritant that's being applied. So, like a particular product could be causing that. It can even be dietary related, but it's more likely to be something specifically applied to the body. So again, being careful about chemicals, being careful about what you're exposed to, being careful even just, we might tend to touch one particular side of our face more often. And a lot of people become more aware of, how often they touch their face with the coronavirus and all that sort of thing. So if one eye weeps, can be challenges with the tear duct, lots of different things there. But again, the holistic things really usually do help. Yeah, that's a good answer there. Linda wrote back there. So check that out. So can be blocked ducts and all that sort of thing. So one of the easiest ways is just doing your own saline solution and really rinsing your eye out. But again, you've got to make sure that you sterilize everything well. So if you're making your own saline solution to rinse out your eyes, you want to get an eye cup or whatever. The reason that look, again, you've got to speak with your ophthalmologist or your eye doctor because, again, we can't make broad recommendations, but when you use a product from the pharmacist or whatever, they're loaded with preservatives and other things that concern me in the long term. And so it is pretty easy to make a natural saline solution, but you've got to make sure that you've actually disinfected things well. So maybe get some hydrogen peroxide from the pharmacist. Make sure you spray that and sterilize everything, boiling water, rinse it all down, and then make a saline solution. Just mixing salt in boiling water, letting it settle so that you don't have any solids there and pouring that out. If you have a filter or something, then of course that will help too. But so that's really, really good to help with blocked tear ducts and general feeling of the eye being gooey or weeping or whatever. And so that was even recommended to me by an ophthalmologist within our community. So when I said, well, what do I do? This eye's been a problem. He said, look, just use a saline solution. There's no point in anything else. Again, when you, and that's the best thing to not. Good point. Okay. What I just recalled, of course, that so eye drops many eye drops contain propylene glycol. So you don't want that. You want to actually find an eye drop. There are eye drops that contain hyaluronic acid and not propylene glycol. They are more expensive, but you want the hyaluronic acid, not propylene glycol. Absolutely, for sure. And so what I was going to say was, one of the issues with the eye and everything, see, we have a microbiome in our gut. We have a skin biome, bacteria all over us. We have an oral microbiome, Obviously, women who've suffered from thrush and everything, they start to learn that they have a vaginal microbiome, and it's the imbalance of the yeasts and the natural bacteria that cause the problem. Well, when we have problems with our eyes and constant eye infections, it's the ocular biome that is the problem. And so when we go down the route of antibiotic drops and all that sort of thing, whilst that can help you get on top of significant conditions of infection, which is important, it does damage the natural ocular biome. And so that's a problem. Then you can end up with problems in that particular eye. So maybe that's what's actually happened with one eye being weepy and everything. So that's what, again, look after your health as naturally, in ways that are as natural as possible. Okay. All right. Let's get on to talking a little bit about the keto diet. So we had some questions in about what is. I don't think we've got them here, but if there are any other questions, we'll come back to that. But what is keto, and what's that all about, and what can I do to activate it? So for those joining on Instagram, we're about to run out of time, so thanks. Great to have you with us. We'll keep chatting on over here, so you can always swing by on the Facebook page. So yeah, what can we do with keto? What was the question that we had in about that? So I think it was just what is keto and what are some of the basics? So let's go through and talk about that. Now we did do a fairly in-depth video on that, answering the differences between keto and paleo and the Eat Savvy approach and all that sort of thing. But let's just specifically look at keto. So I guess first of all, the ketogenic diet or keto diet is where it's really a low carb, moderate protein, higher fat diet. Okay, and so what are some of the reasons that people choose a keto diet? We're dealing with things such as weight loss, better brain function, optimizing energy control throughout the day, those sorts of things. And it is actually very well studied. So definitely good for losing excess fat and that sort of thing. So the challenge that we see from an Eat Savvy approach is that there is, we would consider a clean keto diet a wise thing to look at, but there's also the dirty keto diet. So theoretically, you can lose fat if you're following a dirty keto diet, which is just high in fat, low in carbs, and moderate protein, but doesn't contain things that are really good for your nutritional value. Okay. It doesn't want to do that. So that's the thing that we're really looking to make sure of, that there's actual nutritional value there. You can lose weight, but you're not really optimizing your well-being if you're following a dirty keto approach. And so ketogenic diet is, let's go through some of the stuff. I'm getting ahead of myself there, but how do you get to a keto diet? It's really lowering your carbohydrates, usually below 50 or even 20 grams a day. And so you do have to measure or just totally eliminate all starchy things and only eat greens, and then optimize things more like fat and protein. So just looking at some of the common questions that we've had in about that. And really, I guess what I was mentioning there, the whole clean keto approach is really some of the origins of where the Eat Savvy approach came from. So when I used a ketogenic diet in 2004, 2005 to get on top of my blood sugar ups and downs, and I exited a vegetarian diet and got on top of my blood sugar control issues and metabolic balance by using a clean keto approach. And so in my research into all of that at the time, 15 years ago, when it was less popular than it is today, I recognized that there was a lot of dirty keto going on, and it's like, was a constant. How do we make that cleaner? How do we make that, the food choices more nutrient dense and lower in toxicity? And that's really what many, now what's great is that a lot more doctors, professionals have jumped on board that same thinking, and are really focusing on a clean keto approach. All right, sorry, I don't know what we got going on there. Okay, so really, where does this ketogenic name come from? Well, it's because the diet produces fuel molecules called ketones. By lowering carbohydrates low enough, it's forcing the body to become fat adapted and to produce these ketone bodies. And these are an alternative fuel source for the brain especially. And really, this happens when when the blood sugar is in short supply, really. So, it also happens if you're eating very low calories. So, in essence, when you're on a low calorie diet, very low calorie diet, then you're entering a state of nutritional ketosis as well. It's just easier to get into that ketotic state when you avoid the carbohydrates. Okay, and so because carbohydrates spike your blood sugar and then spike insulin, and high insulin levels make it almost impossible to actually burn stored fat for fuel, and then you get the hunger triggered, etc. And so if you're really trying to lose weight and spark up your brain function, get in control of the blood sugar roller coaster, have a steady supply of energy, then get rid of the peaks and valleys in sugar, or your sugar control like I did, then more of a ketogenic approach really does help you get on top of that. So it's a little bit more than just low carb. So when with the Eat Savvy approach, it's more anti-inflammatory, whole food, low toxin, high nutrition, and low carb approach. It's not really a ketogenic approach, but you can turn that into keto. So really, the Eat Savvy is more about a spectrum. So if you're a vegetarian, follow the Eat Savvy approach and get the most nutrient-dense foods that you can. If you're following the paleo diet, follow the Eat Savvy approach and get the most nutrient-dense foods you can with the least amount of those inflammatory things that can be natural in many foods. If you're following a ketogenic diet, follow the Eat Savvy approach and look for the most nutrient-dense foods on there with the least inflammatory. You can be ketogenic by eating cream cheese and bacon and and eggs and duck fat and these sorts of things, and basically have no vegetables, lots of dairy, lots of inflammatory dairy, you could even be eating vegetable oils and being in ketosis, but you're damaging your system. You're putting all these inflammatory things in there. So again, clean keto is the way to go. So that's the challenge when you just look at what's the keto diet. So it's again, that leads us to a bit of a fashionable term, intermittent fasting. And intermittent fasting can give you a little bit more leeway in terms of including carbohydrates, because it gets you into ketosis quicker. And so that's really what I did. I to begin with, what I did was got in control of my blood sugar ups and downs with a clean, Eat Savvy ketogenic approach. So I dropped my carbohydrates to below 20 grams per day and optimized fats, eliminated snacking, just got used to my body being able to burn fat for fuel. That smoothed out all the blood sugar ups and downs, got rid of the low blood sugar headaches and hangriness. Then I started experimenting with seeing whether I could stretch out meal times, because I couldn't go several hours without eating or I'd get a headache because my blood sugar was so bad. I got really hangry and I couldn't function because my body was not fat adapted. And the recommendations I got from all the authorities was basically to eat 6 to 8 small meals a day of complex carbohydrates, to make myself oat porridges and take them through the day to eat when I got hungry and all that sort of thing, which was the opposite of what I needed to do once I did the research. That's why I hit the textbooks and really researched. And really that was some of the early formations of what you have today as the Eat Savvy approach. So really what you're looking to do is build more metabolic flexibility into you, okay, over time. So many people argue about whether you should be keto or should be that. Like, you want to have a life, right? So I built fasting into my regimen so that I can create a little bit more leeway. Once I got the flexibility, once I got the dietary flexibility so that my body's okay burning fats or carbohydrates, so I don't actually feel any different. You'll notice when you go to... Getting ahead of myself. I should have followed my plan so that it was easier for you to follow. Oh dear. Corey. All right. So I've already covered good for weight loss, good for the brain, and good for stable energy control. Building in metabolic flexibility, so it doesn't matter what's there, and that's what happened for me. To begin with, when I transferred onto a ketogenic diet, there was getting rid of the carbohydrates. My body was craving those sugars. It was all the body was used to it. So that's where people call it the keto flu or the side effects of keto. They're all just, to begin with, they're all because you're eliminating an addiction. When you go off any drug, you're going to notice those, that feeling of lacking. What's it called? Withdrawal symptoms. So when you withdraw off sugar and carbs, you're going to have withdrawal symptoms. It's just addiction. Many of the sweets spark the same centers, same addiction centers in the brain that are sparked up by, drugs, by recreational drugs. So it is difficult. You do notice a few symptoms. But what we do with our programs is we offset those with nutritional programs. So all of the complaints about keto or dieting, we usually are able to offset them with other supportive approaches. So it's different to, you Google side effects of of dieting, and many of our community members don't have any of those side effects because we've built programs to offset those sorts of things. So you can overcome some of those things. Let's just take this for example. When you transfer off carbohydrates and onto more of a ketogenic approach, let's say you went from a standard diet to a ketogenic approach with no change in everything, you might notice feeling tired, you might notice headaches, you might notice itchy rashes, you might notice cramps and those sorts of things. Well, that's because you really needed to up the nutrition because your body's not been used to that food source. Your microbiome wasn't prepared. So that's why in our programs we have things such as probiotics in there. We have trace minerals in there to help the adaptation. We have vitamins in there. So we have nutrients, liver protective nutrients in there to support that detoxification that goes on. So if you just following a dietary change without the supportive side of things, you just notice more symptoms. So if you tough it out, but that's why most of the issues that people might Google don't exist for our community members because we've built the programs that way. So what you should not do on a ketogenic diet is if you're struggling with issues such as like you're on medication for blood pressure, diabetes, if you're breastfeeding, they're probably the three top reasons that you should be cautious about that. But again, there's nothing wrong with talking with your doctor and then saying, I'm going to start to reduce my intake of sugar. Will you monitor me and everything? Start with things that are rich in sugar, then reduce your grains, then maybe work towards the starchy tubers and all those sorts of things. But in reality, most people do fine if they just eliminate the sugar in the grain and still stay on a bit of sweet potato here, a beetroot here, a piece of fruit there, and all that sort of thing. So it's only if you really want to get strict and do it quickly that you need to really go into a ketosis state. Okay, so common questions are, well, what foods are keto? Well, things like natural fats, butter, olive oil, fish, seafood, eggs, cheese, vegetables that grow above the ground, so not the starchy ones. They're all keto friendly. What's important related to reaching ketosis, I guess, is just eliminating as many of those starchy carbs. What to drink, it becomes a little bit complicated here because you want to avoid anything that sparks blood sugar and insulin, and sometimes people still consume things such as whey protein and all that when they're trying to adapt, and that triggers insulin release, and that can cause problems. So you're wanting to just go on whole foods, follow the Eat Savvy approach. A cup of coffee with a splash of cream, that's still good. Whereas drinking a latte, not good. Having lots of almond milk in your coffee or whatever, not so good. They're all going to be higher in carbohydrates. So again, you're wanting to to really get into a state of ketosis. You're looking at below 20 grams, moderate of carbs. Moderate ketosis around about 50 grams, and then sort of like liberal carbohydrate consumption is up to 100 grams of carbs, which means you are eliminating breads and pastas and cereals and grains and all that sort of thing. Okay, and you're eating more the nutrient-dense foods, which are better for you. But again, we don't strictly recommend ketogenic diet for the long haul. More of a cyclic ketogenic diet would be better, in my opinion. Okay, which means that you come out every now and then, but and not in a big. You don't have a blowout where you have a pasta dish, but you might have some roasted sweet potatoes. You might have a little bit of basmati rice. You might have, some fruit in your smoothie, in your green superfood smoothie, those sorts of things, so that you're including more nutrients in your approach. Okay, so and then start to do what I do. Be after you've gotten in control of your blood sugar, start to implement some of that, making sure you're skipping meals, then maybe skipping snacks, I should say, then maybe skipping a meal here and there to build in that flexibility. Then maybe practice fasting and not having any breakfast. And then what you're doing, some people on keto have 2 meals a day. Some focus on a 1 meal a day diet. Every now and then I do 1 meal a day. Sometimes it's 2 meals a day. 1 meal a day, 2 meals a day. And that gives me more flexibility. So I was able to lose, when I was on the strict keto approach 15 years ago, if I had anything like a little bit of dark chocolate or whatever, or some berries and cream, it would stop my weight loss. Whereas, or maybe I had a glass of wine, whereas in my recent, leaning down, and I've shared a bit about that following, body transformation protocol that we have, I was able to lose all of that weight. I did up my exercise regimen, but I was still able to have some carbohydrates. I still had red wine on the weekends. I still ate chocolate, on the weekends. I still had some roasted sweet potatoes on, sometime through the week. But mostly because I'd included a little bit of fasting, I created a little bit of metabolic wiggle room, you could say. So if you want to eat 3 snacks a day and 3 meals a day, then you are not going to have wiggle room. Okay, so you basically need to be mostly cautious of how much fat you're having and how many, mostly carbs. So I say how much fat because if you're on a ketogenic diet and you're eating a lot of fat still, you may still not lose weight. You have to be able to build in that skipping of the meals in order, and most people aren't that hungry on a ketogenic approach, so it's easier to skip the meals. Okay? All right. But look, there's, I think, 50 different high-quality scientific studies talking about the benefits. So any of the typical things that you might hear about it not being helpful is just rubbish. Good for weight loss. Good for energy control. Many people notice a calmer stomach and less IBS as well. We discussed it on an episode of a show we did previously on the benefits of brain function and even epilepsy. That's where a lot of the initial research came from. So just to quickly deal with some of the controversies that you may have heard about. The things that tend to scare people are myths, like, for example, your brain will cease functioning unless you eat carbs. Myth, untrue, not even backed in science. So if you hear anybody that's supposed to be a doctor saying that, they simply do not have any awareness of research or how the body functions even. Crazy, but true. Because the alternative source of fuel for the brain are ketones. In fact, the brain loves to function on ketones. It creates more of a steady supply of energy. So eventually you will build in enough metabolic flexibility that it doesn't matter which fuel source your brain uses. But until that's the case, then you could notice a changeover. The way I explain it is, for any of you old enough to know, gas and petrol conversions in a car. The car can run on gas, but when it changes over, let's say that gas is like carbohydrates, okay? And your body's used to running on that. But you run out of, your LPG cylinder runs low and you've got fuel in the tank, so you used to have to flick a switch over, an actual switch, to flick on the petrol tank. And the car then has to adapt to that fuel, so it chug-a-lugs a bit and makes the adaptation, and then it's running okay. Well, that's sort of what it's like when you've been running on glucose. You're eating so many carbs, and then you switch over to being more metabolically flexible, and you start to burn fat for fuel, which you want to do if you're wanting to lose weight, because you have to burn that fat up. And so, ketogenic diet and a low-carb approach just optimizes for that, lowers insulin enough to optimize for fat burning. So you're optimizing to switch over and burn from that tank, which is what you want to do, right? And so you chug a lug a bit there, and so you get those funny symptoms as you move there. So if you think about it though, once you do that often enough, it's almost like you morph into a modern car that's electric and fuel based. And so, a hybrid car switches between the energy sources seamlessly, and nobody notices anything. You don't notice a change. Not only do you not notice a change, you don't have to manually flick the switch. Well, that's what it's like for me now. I had to manually flick the switch. Now I can eat the carbs, or I can eat the fat, and I can run on both. And that's where you want to get to if you want stable energy, clearer thinking, effortless weight management, and the like. And that's what you'll eventually be able to do if you follow our approach and tap in with the community, follow the Eat Savvy approach, etc. So that eliminates that controversy about the fact that your brain needs glucose. And then another misunderstanding, even coming from medical professionals, which I just do not understand. It's insane that they say that you will end up in a dangerous ketoacidosis situation. And that's not true, okay? They misunderstand normal ketosis with the emergency medical ketoacidosis that can happen from, mostly for diabetics. So, ketoacidosis doesn't happen just from eating a keto diet. We have built-in mechanisms in our biology, in our DNA, that have been built for times without food and carbohydrates. So we're supposed to have the metabolic flexibility. We're supposed to be able to eat this, and then I digress. We're supposed to be able to eat all these food sources, but it's the rich source of these carbohydrates and grains that fatten us up, which is why using a low-carb keto approach to lose all of that helps. And then once you've lost it, and we have programs to help you anyway, but once you've lost it, then of course you can broaden your diet so that you're not going from one to the other. We're not in a situation like a hibernating bear where it's either feast or famine. So a bear what does a bear that hibernates fatten up on before it goes into hibernation? Do you know? Fruit. Fruit preferentially fills the fat stores in you too. So those who consume a lot of fruit juice, and a lot of fructose actually have fatty livers because the body's trying to, convert all this fat and store it. And so the bear fattens up on fruit like you do, but it's fine because it then hibernates. It fasts for months and uses up that fat. We have the same built-in mechanisms in us, but we basically only ever follow the fattening up process and not any of the hibernating fasting process. So that's really why we end up with these troubles. Well, part of the reason anyway. All right, so I think that they were all the questions that we had on there. Keto won't destroy your kidneys, won't destroy your thyroid and everything, and none of it's based on science. That's not to say that there aren't some people who won't adapt very well, but again, we're not talking. You don't have to do you don't have to do all or nothing. You're not going all out there. Follow the Eat Savvy approach. Start to reduce your sugars, grains, inflammatory vegetable oils. See how you're going. You may never need to go on a specific ketogenic diet program. You might already feel better, but then start to develop more of that process. Tap in and see how you go. It's just, I wanted to cover that because we've had some recent questions, and it was one of the most widely Googled diets of 2019. As if it's new. It's like reached fad-like status, like intermittent fasting. They're all, in 2000 I was studying fasting and the benefits of fasting. I discounted it for me because I had the blood sugar control issues and couldn't imagine not eating. And all the experts told me to keep eating 6 times to 8 times a day. So now I don't do that. Now I incorporate both of those things that I started to study back in 2000. So it's not new, but it does take 20 years for the average population and what's out there to catch up with some of the things on the forefront of medical research. So anyway, went off the track a couple of times with the keto diet, but it is a really good way of you gaining control again. I think that's it from our question point of view, and great to have you with us here for this particular episode. So again, look, if we think sensibly about any of the symptoms that you've been experiencing, whatever it is, we're talking about dry lips or eye problems or any of those sorts of things, it's really, really important to realize that any symptom, it's not an enemy to be destroyed, but a sacred messenger who's basically, it's basically encouraging us to take better care of ourselves. So don't get angry about anything that's happened to you. Just realize, okay, it's just an indicator. Let's get on with it. Let's make some actions. Let's make some changes. So the Eat Savvy philosophy is pretty simple. You get it that there are some things that aren't so good for you. Patterns of eating, addictive behaviors, and there are things that are good for you. So the Eat Savvy approach is really about saying, okay, nothing is either good or bad, but it's on a sliding scale. Okay, so the more we can actually err towards the savvy side of things, the healthy side of things, eating on the top side of the spectrum, the better off we're going to be. And so, as I've said a few times over the course of this particular session, there are a few simple things that make the biggest impact. And so, the Pareto principle is the 80-20 rule. What 20% of actions will give you most of the results. And the biggest dietary impacts, the three Pareto principle diet changes that'll give you the biggest bang for your buck is getting rid of sugars, getting rid of grains, and getting rid of the inflammatory seed oils. But download the free Eat Savvy approach, start doing a little bit of practicing with that, and then, maybe tackle a bit of a 30-day challenge, challenging yourself to eat on the upper end of the spectrum. And if you want more information on all of this, then check out our Wellness Easy as 1, 2, 3 philosophy. We've got a whole series of classes on that have all been part of this particular Healthy Savvy Life show. So go back and check out some of those. So, okay. Looks like we're good. All right, so thanks for being with us here on the Healthy Savvy Life show. And if you have any questions, do feel free to reach out to us. And we look forward to catching up with you next time round here on the show. So all the best, and remember to be savvy. Cheers.